Good morning, everybody, and it is Sunday as well as an ab day. As you can tell, I basically just woke up, got a bit of scruff on my face, my hair's looking wild. It's okay because I'm going to get a nice cold shower after I'm done the workout. I'm going to head over to the gym in a little bit, going to use the machines, going to use the medicine ball or the heavyweight ball. Are they all called medicine balls, even the big ones, the weighted balls? If you can't tell, I'm still waking up. I haven't got my Fitbit on. I've been up for a little bit now, but I've woken up later than I would like to. I worked a late shift last night, and I gotta wake up at 5 in the morning tomorrow, so that's gonna be fun. But anyway, let me drink my pre-workout, and we're gonna get to the gym, work on some cardio. Obviously, today's a hard cardio day, and we're gonna get this ab workout going. So I will catch you guys there. One of my favorite things to watch when I have some downtime, yes, that's that KT tape you are seeing on my shoulder. It actually does work pretty well, I'm not going to lie. But anyways, back to what I wanted to talk about. Outside of nerdy videos and things like that on YouTube, video game tutorials, movie history, the angry video game nerd, stuff like that. Another thing I really enjoy watching is actually metal YouTubers, not YouTubers that make metal itself, but the YouTubers who talk about heavy metal. That was a really bad joke. Keep in mind, it's not so much about the reviews for metal musicians and things like that, but even though I do find that enjoyable every now and again, because a lot of the times I'm already listening to it, I already know what my opinion is, and it is cool to see someone else's perspective. But overall, I actually like listening to or watching history of metal and different metal bands. And the one I'm listening to and watching the most now is a gentleman known as Wyatt's Metal. He's actually really fun to watch. He did recently 2 videos, the worst music bandmates. I can't remember the exact title of it. But he went over it, and some of them are just so goofy and over the top where you can't help but laugh. And the ego on some of these musicians as well is also a doozy. I was watching it, and the one when he was talking about Sid Vicious and how Sid Vicious, if you follow punk music, you already knew Vicious was not really that much of a musician. He was more just there to be, the bad boy of the Sex Pistols, to try and be more rebellious. But he was just an overall smeghead. And the movie Sid and Nancy really didn't do as good as... That's a good movie, keep in mind. But similar to Lords of Darkness, I think that's what that movie's called. It's a very, very liberal interpretation of the true story of what actually happened. And this story is a little bit more lighthearted, but he was also talking about the band Batushka, in that I believe it was the lead singer or lead guitarist left the band, and he claimed he owned the rights to the Batushka name. So for a moment in time, there were 2 different Batushka albums, and they were not the same band. They were 2 bands that were actually feuding with each other, one with the original singer and one with the actual band. That was funny. So I was going to head over to the bookstore because they're having a 50% off Criterion sale. Yeah, it's that bi-yearly sale they have at Barnes & Noble. And it's not far, but it's not close either. It's like 20 minutes from me. And I really just don't feel like dealing with it in this weather. So I'm just going to go tomorrow after work. I leave work very early tomorrow, so that's very nice. So I'm going to I'm just going to do that on Tuesday because I have things I have to take care of on Monday after work anyway, outside of just going to the gym. But I already got one movie from the sale this year. I got the Godzilla vs. Biollante, which is cool, even though I wish it came with the American version as well. And it still has these subtitles burned into it, so they never fixed that, which I don't think they can do much about at this point. But Still a cool Blu-ray to have since that's been out of print for a long time, even though I already had the DVD of it. I have no idea why that specific Godzilla movie has been like under wraps for years. We're not under wraps, but kind of just like they just refused to re-release it, and it had to take until Criterion showed up and say, okay, we'll do it at a markup. But like I said, I got it. It's cool to have. And I might go in tomorrow or Tuesday to see if they have anything else that catches my eye. I think I already have all the Criterions I might want, though. I can talk about that later, actually. But in the meantime, I'm going to go to the store, get some snack food.
Some good fucking food.
And head home. And I'm back home. I didn't go to the store yet. I wanted to come home and shave a little bit. And I also wanted to get my collagen protein in.
Piece of shit.
And also I had lunch too. So after I finish drinking this, I'm gonna run to the store, grab some kombucha. I also need new razors, single blade ones. I use the full Dollar Shave Club type full razors, but I also want to get the single blade because I think it also, when I'm done with the full, I like to go over it once more just to get a little bit of a tighter, you know, shave there. But like I said, I'm gonna drink this real quick and then get on the bounce, hit up the store, and then come home, just relax and play some Clair Obscur. Get a little bit further in that, I'm on the Reiner boss. Hopefully I can finally beat him because that guy is doozy. But anyway, I had lunch. I'm gonna go to the store, grab some apples and a kombucha. And like I said, maybe even some single blade razors. I might do that another day. I might do that tomorrow on my way back from Young Adult Ministry, because we have a place that sells them over there too. So that might just be a quick and easy trip. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys when I am home again. Peace. So I thought something fun to talk about to wrap up the night before I go immediately to bed is some of my favorite Criterions, and I brought them here because, like I said, I was going to go to the sale today. Ultimately didn't. Might hit it up one more time on Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. But what are some of the Criterions that I think are worth a squeeze? Now, like I said, Criterion is the company that they send out the movies that are considered important classics, or even some, maybe even a little bit of underground stuff that has a very strong cult following, similar to Shout Factory. Shout Factory is a banger, by the way. But these are in no particular order. These are just the movies that, and these are like my favorites so far. There's obviously more than this, and these are just the ones I just kind of went, oh, I want to talk about that a little bit. Like I said, there's no order. But Jigoku, I got this not even realized, but before I even knew what Criterion was. And this is a movie about, well, hell. And it starts out, the first half's a drama, second half is a horror film that actually takes place in hell. And both of them are really well done. This is considered one of the earliest examples of a gore movie. So the fact that Criterion put this out is really cool. It could have almost been, it almost feels like a movie that Shout would have put out, but I think because it is more cultured than something Shout might re-release, that's why it's Criterion and not just, you know, Shout or even Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome is great, by the way. Then there's House. House is another Japanese horror film, and this is straight up just a horror comedy, and this is very bizarre and very surreal. There's a scene that straight up inspired a moment from Super Mario 64. You know that piano that jump scared everybody? Came out of this, and like I said, this is just a bizarre little movie. I remember I was watching this with my roommate at the time, and this was before we were roommates, actually. It was just over at his house. He said, you need to watch this movie because it's weird. And I watched the movie, and it was weird. There's a dude that just randomly turns into bananas. And I posted, this movie is like an acid trip. This is before I started watching really weird movies often. And my uncle said, "Have you ever been on S?" And I said, "No, but I'm assuming it feels like this." And this is another one that kind of started the gore thing. It's not that gory, but this is like a proto slasher, eyes wide, almost said eyes wide shut, eyes without a face, eyes wide shut. Could you imagine? As a gore film, that'd be a doozy. But this is a very, very cool movie. I love this movie, and it also inspired this one film. I think it was called The Skin I Live In. I never watched that, so I can't confirm or deny. But apparently, this was a huge inspiration on that. Like I said, this is a proto slasher, and for something during Halloween, this is great. Normally during Halloween time, we watch films that are like the more lowbrow kind of horror, or at least I do anyway. But every now and again, you gotta put on the classic. You gotta put on the one that basically became a staple in the genre. Because without this, we probably wouldn't have the slasher genre. I mean, I know there's movies that also inspired it that people might claim are more important, but the face removal scene is still pretty brutal, especially for the time. And could you imagine being there in 1959, seeing someone's face being removed? Gotta take their face off. I haven't watched this in a while, but I remember when I saw it, I was like, dang, this is actually really cool. It's not the most fast-paced slasher, even proto-slasher, but it is just really good with its atmosphere, and I think that's one thing the Criterion does get right. They do know how to re-release their horror films that have that more unnerving atmosphere, not just something jump scare heavy. Now, these two I am going to kind of put together. Let me reorganize this a bit. Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble. John Waters is a maniac, and that's why I love his stuff. Female Trouble is definitely the more underrated of the two. The only reason I didn't put this up a little bit higher above Pink Flamingos is I sometimes confuse this for multiple maniacs. But if you want sleaze, you just put this on. And obviously, the one that everyone knows is Pink Flamingos. I mean, I think the one everyone knows from John Waters is actually Hairspray, because that's his more family appropriate movie, and it even got a remake. But when it comes to John Waters aficionados, everyone knows Pink Flamingos. Everyone who knows cult films knows Pink Flamingos. Pink Flamingos is that movie, with the infamous end scene. It's about two families going up against each other to say who is the grossest person, and it is gross overall. I remember I showed this to my roommate, and his face the whole movie was just. And yeah, that's right. Like by the time I saw this movie, I've already seen so many trauma movies. The Greasy Strangler, Cannibal Holocaust at that point. So this was just another kind of day at the office for me, but it's still very entertaining, like in its own sick, disturbing way. And Divine, God rest her soul, she is always very entertaining to watch. I don't care if the movie is good or bad. Divine had so much energy in her that I have a blast watching her whenever she's on screen. And like I said, it's a shame she passed away. She was very, very entertaining to watch. Now we went from something kind of goofy and dark to something. I mean, obviously it's dark, but something very more lightheartedly dark to something that is just genuinely dark, and that's The Virgin Spring. Now, if you've seen Last House on the Left, that's actually a remake of this movie. The girl unfortunately gets, and murdered, and her father gets revenge on the people that did that to her. This one's more of a dramatic thriller than a horror movie like the Last House on the Left is, but I felt more impact. This one was more impact, like by far. And I was telling this one gentleman at work the other day, he was talking about Last House on the Left, and I said, "Did you know that's a remake?" He said, "Oh yeah, there was a movie in the 70s." I said, "No, that movie's a remake of The Virgin Spring." He said, "Oh, well, I never knew that. I'm gonna have to look that up." So if you've seen Last House on the Left, you gotta watch The Virgin Spring. It comes from this. It's the exact same plot. I mean, I think another thing that makes it stand out more is the fact that it's a kind of a thriller horror movie, that takes place in the more of a Renaissance era. That's ultimately does what makes it stand out, because it's disturbing because you do see everything. It's unnerving because you do see everything. But it's like, it feels earned when it does it. It doesn't feel like it's just there to shock you. Like, Ingmar Bergman, he is a master of this. He also made a movie called The Seventh Seal, which is, without a doubt, one of the best movies ever made also. So, if you like Seventh Seal, you gotta watch this. That felt good. But let's start wrapping this up with something a little bit more fun than that. There's Videodrome. I mean, I say fun, but it's body horror by David Cronenberg. You already know what you're getting into when you put this on. And this is one of the ones where whenever they do the half-off sale at Barnes and Noble's, you're still going to pay a little bit because they only have this collector's edition version of it, which is fine. And, James Woods steals the show in this. And I think this is, when it comes to his remake of The Fly, I always saw that as more of a drama that has a horror ending. This one is definitely more of a body horror sci-fi film. All hail the new flesh, after all. And it's one of those things where you're just like, yeah, David Cronenberg has a very big thing for sexual horror. You even see that in his son's movie, Possessor. But, and even like Crimes of the Future, which came out years later. Not his old movie called that, but when he made a newer movie called Crimes of the Future, that was definitely, yeah. But that doesn't take away from how good this movie actually is. I genuinely loved this movie, and I think everyone does. It's the reason why they put it on Criterion release. But how many times can I say but in one video when just talking about movies? A lot, actually. Either way, David Cronenberg is great at body horror. That's just his thing. Even his movie Existence, which is kind of like The Matrix, is good body horror. So, I almost said Eraserhead, but that's David Lynch, not Cronenberg. Rest in peace. Which also has a Criterion release. David Cronenberg stuff, a lot of that is Criterion released, by the way. I didn't put those in because those are kind of more known, especially now with, unfortunately, what happened. And I think this might be my favorite Cronenberg movie. I think. Let me rewatch Existence first. But to genuinely end it on something more fun, Jabberwocky. And my brain was, Terry Gilliam. My brain was forgetting what his name was, Terry Gilliam. This is his not Monty Python movie. That's definitely a Monty Python movie, by the way. It was like he had this idea for a great Monty Python movie, but he didn't want the Monty Python label on it. It even has actors from the Monty Python movies in this. Just goes to show how loyal they are to him, which is for good reason. He's a great director. You have this, Brazil, 12 Monkeys. This one's definitely a lot more lighthearted than those other ones. And the Jabberwocky, when the Jabberwocky shows up, it's like a 70s effect, yeah, 70s effect, but you know what? There's something about it that makes it cooler that way. It's obviously not going to be CGI. It has to be a puppet, but it still looked mildly intimidating. I loved the look of the Jabberwocky, and because I remember I was talking to my one friend, and he said that this is one of those so bad it's good movies. I'm like, this isn't bad at all. It's goofy, but it's not bad. This is great. This is an underrated gem. And I think Criterion also did a re-release of what's that? Oh my gosh. It was also another really bizarre movie. I don't know why my brain is farting on it. I'll remember it another day. But that movie, even though I can't remember the name of it, and this are probably my favorite Terry Gilliam movies. I like Brazil a lot, but so many movies decided to do the Brazil ending. If you've seen Brazil, you know what I mean. Spoilers, I don't care. It was all a dream ending. There probably was something that predated that. There's Wizard of Oz. There's the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Though those both did the, you know, it was a dream ending. Even though I think Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is supposed to be more up in the air if it is a dream or not. Though everyone just calls it now the Brazil ending because Brazil is the one that is the most infamous of those. It was all a dream type endings. But thankfully, Jabberwocky isn't like that. Jabberwocky is an adventure fantasy comedy about this random dude who goes to fight the Jabberwocky from the story of Alice in Wonderland. You know what? It's really funny. I really enjoyed this movie. Yeah. Sorry, I am really tired right now because I gotta get to bed. And who knows, maybe one day we'll see Poultrygeist get its own Criterion release. Because if any movie deserves a Criterion release, it's Poultrygeist. Anyways, my friends, I gotta get to bed. I'm starting to feel really tired now. If you haven't noticed. But I want to talk about movies for a little bit. Anyways, my friends, I'm going to bed. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, but another day soon. Peace.